Hi there, my name's Ian Berry and welcome to a series of candid and convivial conversations about leadership. My special guest today is Mark Sutherland. Now, Mark is a gold medal coach. He's coached several world champions and he still is in the sporting field as a leading coach, but he also is a leading coach for business owners and business leaders. And Mark and I, we have a regular catch up once a month to compare notes, share ideas, and Mark has some great insights into leadership. So, Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Ian.
I thought, as the format of this particular series, Mark's going to give us about 10 minutes of what his observations have been over a long period of time of working with leaders in sport and also in business. And then we'll have a bit of a Q&A afterwards. So over to you, Mark.
Great, thank you. So when it comes to leadership, my overwhelming focus is always on the team. It's about getting a team to do what it is that they need to do to be able to achieve the goals that are put in place. So I learned that from sport, definitely. Coaching Olympic champions, my guys had 1 minute and 33 seconds to prove themselves after 4 years of training. So preparation is everything, as they say, and being able to help those guys to achieve that was all about them. But also part of the leadership thing, I think, as well, is it should be all about the team, but you personally have to have your own particular goal that you want to achieve. And I remember back in the day when I was coaching my Olympic athletes, that the chairman of the sports association that I was working with, he phoned me up and he said, now, everything you do has to be about the boys and you've got to run after them, you've got to be a slave to them, you've got to do this. And I said, well, then I'm out. And he said, what do you mean you're out? I said, that's not how it's going to work. If that's what you think I'm going to do, then I'm out. So so he's like, well, we'll talk again. So I went to training the next morning and one of my Olympic champions was right there. And I said to him, this is what, Bill told me this is what I had to do. And this athlete, Paul, his name, he came to me and he said, what did you say to him? And I said, I told him that if that's what he wanted from me, I'm out. And I also told him that my job is to help you guys be the best athletes in the world, because if I do that for you guys, then you guys will get your goal and I'll get my goal. My goal is to be the coach of an Olympic champion team. And he said, well, I'm glad you said that, because if you had agreed with him, I would have sacked you right now. I don't need people running around after me. I need people who are on my side and who want to help me get where I need to go so I can help them to get them where they need to go. And that was kind of my first real thoughts about leadership. It is about the team, and it's about the team helping each other to achieve their goals. So one of the things I do, for example, with small businesses and with corporates as well, when I'm working with the lead teams or the leaders, and I get them to do this simple little exercise. I did it myself when I was a sales manager a long time ago. And I had these young people, salespeople, and we were selling communications back then. So we were selling cell phones and, this is way back when they just started to come into the marketplace, right? And those things put on your hip and it beeps and it gives you a message, those sorts of things, right? And I came into this company because I needed a job. I was always losing my jobs because I went overseas, and these guys said they would keep my job when I was traveling for sport. And they were doing $700 a week in sales. And so these are rental sales. So $700 a week rental. Next week you do another $700. There's $1,400 a week, and then the next week you do another $700, and there's $2,100 a week coming in. So you do the math throughout a year. It's a huge amount of money. And I sort of thought, this is 700. That doesn't sound right to me. So I got my team together and I said, we've got to go more than that. So this is what I want to know from you guys. If we want to double that and then triple that on a weekly basis, how are we going to do it? So I started this weekly thing, and I said to them, and this is what I teach people to this day. What's your goal for this week, Sam? How do you propose to achieve that goal? How can I help you? And how can the team help you? And we would go around, everybody in the team, there's about 6 of us, and we all had to answer those questions. And out of that came collaboration. Out of that became a sense of team. Out of that became unbelievably cool results. Because the other thing I said to my team as well was, you're here because you're smart, you're intelligent, and you're very good at what you do. I'm not going to be your policeman. I'm not going to be your doctor. I'm not going to be anything. I'm just going to be here to support you guys to do what it is that you do extremely well. And so I said, one of the guys, and his name was Sam actually, one of the guys I said to him, I said, you like surfing? I don't give a shit if you surf 3 days a week, as long as you show up on Wednesday morning at 8:30 with your numbers, with your sales. And if you need me in between time, you know where I am. And so he used to surf every Friday. He only worked 4 days a week. And he had record sales because I wasn't going to be a policeman for this guy. So within 2 months, we were doing $3,000 of rentals a week. Mind-blowing number of dollars compared to what they'd done. And this is where leadership goes wrong now. The CFO comes over and says, after about 4 months, he goes, these salespeople are earning more than our managers, and we can't have that. I said, they're making you millions and millions of dollars. What do you mean you can't have that? So this is where the moronic activity of leadership comes in. And I said, if you chop their commission down, they will leave. I guarantee you they will leave. If you don't, you'll continue to make millions and millions of dollars. Anyway, being a corporate moron as he was, he chopped their commission. Within a month, they were all gone, and I left them shortly after that. And I had a phone call from the guy that took over from me, and he said, could I just tap you just a couple of things I need some clarity about? And I said, well, how's it going? He goes, you're doing really well. We're doing about $700 a week. And I said, mate, I got my team up to 3,000. Well, how did you do that? He said to me, and I said, well, if you're prepared to pay me, I'll come and I'll tell you. But if you're not, figure it out yourself. So I walked away from that one, and once again, for me as a leader, it was all about the team. And they did brilliantly. I didn't really care what they did during the week as long as they showed up on a Wednesday. And that was another thing. I made our week Wednesday to Tuesday because the psychology of it is really simple. People believe that they're getting a few days off in the week. When you go Monday to Friday, that's normal, right? And then you get Saturday, Sunday. When you go Wednesday to Tuesday, I'll get a couple of days off during the week because you get in Saturday, Sunday off, and then you come back Monday, Tuesday, and that's the end of your week. And it was a weird little psychology thing that went on. That was my experience with leadership, and I still use it to this day with clients and companies. I teach them the same stuff I used to do back then and how it works. But one of the things I'm really passionate about is getting rid of ego. Leaders that have big egos are a pain in the ass. And I'm working with one right now, and he's trying to fix a whole lot of things that aren't broken, things that have been working brilliantly for an organization for such a long time, which is why they're having sales records every single year. And then this guy comes in, brand new general manager of business development, and wants to fix something that's absolutely not broken. And what he's achieved in the last 6 months is a whole lot of animosity towards him and a whole lot of people who are really pissed off. And he's like, what am I doing wrong? And I'm saying, what you're doing wrong is you're coming in and bringing your ego with you, and nobody cares. Mm-hmm. You're the only one that cares about your ego, dude, and you're getting in the way of everybody. And what you need to do is to be creating a pathway for them to follow. And you're not doing that. It's all about you, it's all about you, it's all about you, and they don't like you. Until it becomes all about them, they might start liking you. So you've got to make a decision. You've got to get your act together on this one. So that reminded me of the Sirota Institute, which is in New Jersey and in the United States. And they do massive studies they've done it for years and years. And they surveyed, I think it was 3 million people. And they discovered the 3 things that employees want more than anything else. And those 3 things are simple. Equity, a fair day's pay for a fair day's job, and a say in their job. So if you've got a bloke who's been putting nuts on bolts for 25 years, he's a specialist. He needs to be talked to. He needs to share his ideas because he's the one doing it at the coalface. The second one is acknowledgement. They want acknowledgement for a good job. They want to be recognized for doing a great job. And the third one is camaraderie. A person will work in the same business if they feel a sense of belonging for a long period of time. So when I read that research years ago, I saw like that's got to be the key to a successful team. Let's make sure they have equity. Let's make sure that we tap into their brain, their experienced insights and brains. And this is what a leader should be doing, whether it's a CEO or the leader of a small business. You know, I've got a client who's a soldier. She's a corporal, and she trains SAS soldiers to fitness. And she was telling me that because I said to her, you know, you hear in the movies that somebody will call a sergeant sir, and they'll say, "Hell no, son, I'm a sergeant. I work for my living." And she said it's true. When captains come along and majors come along and everything else, where do they go to find out what to do? Because they come from officer school, and you've got a really weathered old sergeant that's seen a few theatres in Afghanistan and places like this, and he comes in and he's telling these leaders, so-called leaders, the majors and the captains and everybody else, on how to survive as a leader of these troops, and so they learn off these sergeants and these sergeant majors, right? So they look to the sergeants for leadership, to learn their own leadership skills, which is the perfect example of the Sirota research. These people are doing this job, and they've been doing it for years and years and years, but nobody's asking them, is there a better way? Because the only people that know if there is a better way is the people who are doing it every single day. But they don't speak up because they haven't been given permission. So one of the things I'm really hot on when I'm working with leaders is say, go and give your people permission to share their knowledge, their insights, their experiences. They can make your business a lot more money than probably your salespeople can, because you're giving them the opportunity to expose their insight and their knowledge and their experience. And when they start talking, you better be prepared with a shorthand person to record everything, because it's gold. It's pure gold. It's platinum gold. It's titanium gold, because these guys live it and love it. So get your own ego out of the way. Go to the team where the experience is. And that's why I really like the way Richard Branson does business. For him, it's all about his staff, first and foremost. Secondly, it's the customer, because if the staff's cool, the customers are going to supply, right? And then dead last is the shareholders and the people who want dividends every year. They come last because they don't have any contribution to the company whatsoever. But they provide cash in terms of shares and everything to get the growth going. But it's the staff and the customers in that order, and then the shareholders. The staff are happy, customers buy, customers are happy, they refer, they tell people, go and get a virgin thing, go and get a virgin thing, it's bloody brilliant. And then when that happens, the money comes in the bank, the billions come in the bank, the shareholders get their dividend. It's all about the team. Anybody who tells you it's not about the team is a moron and shouldn't be a leader. Seriously, if they're all about the team, it's going to rock and roll, and it's going to be a great buzz and a great ride for any leader that gets into that space. And I think for me, you know, I had to learn that really quickly when I was a very young Olympic coach, and it had to be about the team. And you know, like when we were talking earlier about the All Blacks and how they do it, and some of those players have to clean out the locker room after a test match because that's part of the being a team. When I had my team in Europe, you know, we had one guy who was a very good mechanic, so he was looking at, his job was maintenance of our trailers and our cars. We had other jobs that were rotated, so somebody was responsible for the mail. You know, this is before we could have the Skype every day. Somebody had to clean the cars and the vehicles. We had one guy who was brilliant at kayak mechanics, so he looked after the kayaks. And we had one guy who was a pretty good linguist. He could pick up languages quite quickly, so he used to interpret stuff for us. And so everybody had a job other than just being an athlete. They had a job, and they contributed to that job. And we had one guy in the team who absolutely struggled to read. He couldn't read and write properly. And so we said, right, as a team, we're going to help you by the end of this 4-month tour to read and write. So we drove from Stockholm to Munich, which is a bloody long way on the E4. And all that way, it took him the whole trip to write a letter to his girlfriend. And every time he'd say, how do you spell this word? We would say, you tell us first. So the team led him to the point where he could write a letter to his girlfriend in New Zealand, where he could sign and read a document and sign it. And so we as a team, we made his job to learn English, to learn to write. And at the end of that 4 months, he was writing really well. And so the leadership can come from within a team without it having a lead person up the front anywhere. So for me, it just sort of sums it up, it's all about the team. So there's one little story I want to finish this on is our team leader for an Olympic campaign. He's a very wealthy man. He basically connects people up around the world and takes a commission, and most of his commissions are about $1 million. Anyway, he connected a Canadian company with a British company, and for the ease of understanding, it was a nuts and bolts company, right? And what happened was these nuts, this is what he was telling me. He got them together, they did the deal, and then they'd made a big delivery, and the nuts didn't fit the bolts. And all hell let loose, right? It just turned to shit. And everybody was trying to figure out whose fault it was. And then it got to the 125th floor of the head office, and the CEO heard about it. And he immediately got out of his desk and he went down to the ground floor. He went to the nut bolt factory. He walked in there and he said, where did it happen? And this is where it happened, at this part of the chain. And he went over there and he put his hand out and he said to the guy who was in charge of that, he says, I deeply apologize for this. I'm very sorry that this has happened. It's my fault. It's not yours. And I understand that you know your job extremely well, and I value that highly. But I have been remiss. I did not give you permission, and the permission that you should have had always, to make a decision whether to stop that chain or not. And for that, I apologize. And all of a sudden, everybody else is going, holy shit. This is all about, they were all trying to find the scapegoat, right? The CEO took ownership of it, and he apologized to him. And then following that, he apologized to the whole nuts and bolt team. And he said, this will never happen again. You have my full permission to stop this chain if you believe that something's not going to work well. And I thought that was a brilliant story. And it wasn't a nuts and bolts, but that's how he said it to me. And he said the whole thing got cleared up. He got the deal done, and away they went. And he said that's one of the best CEOs I've ever encountered in my entire life. He killed all the, all the crap about this guy did it and that guy did it and should have done this and should have done that, just by immediately taking ownership of it and making sure that the team was first. So that's my voice on leadership.
Well, I think it's a fantastic, fantastic insights, Mark, and thanks so much. I think it's just so often, excuse me, as you and I have often, just have a bit of sip of water there.
Yeah, sure.
As you and I have often talked about, it's so simple, and that's where the profoundness is, of course. That people miss it. I love that study that you mentioned. People looking for equity, acknowledgement, and camaraderie.
Camaraderie, yeah. So it's the Sirota Institute, Sirota.
Right.
And I got some of their papers, and I read everything, and it was just brilliant stuff, And when your sample size is about 3 million people, it's got a lot of credit.
So, Mark, you've been doing this a very long time in sport and business. Why is it, apart from ego, which you touched on, why is it people miss the simplicity of real leadership?
I think because they believe that, as a lot of people get promoted because it's their turn, and they don't really take any education on leadership with them as they go through. So they just lead how they think they need to lead, and it doesn't quite work, because a great leader will see simplicity, will see ease of Because for me, the key question I give CEOs and GMs, and that is, the one question you need to be asking of your whole team, of your whole business is, how can we make this easier for our stakeholders? The stakeholders are the staff, the customers, the suppliers. If we make it simple for them, then life's going to be great. And that's all I did with sport. It's about simplicity. You know, we trained in Auckland and on Lake Pupuki, in the middle of the North Shore of Auckland in New Zealand. And we had Swedish, French, American, Hungarians, who are the number one team in the world for kayaking. They've won more medals than any other country. And we had a Scottish guy and we had an English guy. And they came out to train with us, and they were looking for our training centre. We didn't have one. We had a concrete shed, and we had a lake. And they said, well, where's your technology? And I said, it's right here. I've got a video camera and a stopwatch and a notebook. And that's it. And they, well, how do you do it? Well, we do time trials. Okay, so where's your gym? Well, we don't have one. We have one in town. It's a pretty scungy one down the basement of a gym. So they go over there. And because they were all looking for this sophistication and this complexity and all these minute little things that we were doing. We weren't. We knew how to go fast. We knew how to build up to that. And we bought into that, and we used the video to slow things down to analyze technique, and that's it. And they were from Sweden and Germany and all these places where they've got scientists coming out their backsides, you know, to tell them what to do and everything else. And we just said, how can we make this work with what we have, and how can we make it simple? And we blitzed the world, you know, for this tiny, tiny little country taking on these great sporting nations. And we weren't beaten. We were unbeaten for 2.5 years from this tiny little island of ours, because we look at simplicity, and that's the only thing that matters. And I don't think people get that, because when they get into leadership roles, they think they have to come with something that's really cool and really new and really strong, and, you know, and it's got this really cool system, and it's called ABCDXY 37.1009. Oh, it's like, who cares? Is it going to help my team? And I teach leaders two questions, right? Question one, is what you're going to do a return on investment or a bloody distraction? And I tell you what, 8 times out of 10, it's a distraction. And the second question is, if we do this, will it grow our business? Yes, right, carry on. No, let's not do it. It's that simple.
I mean, it's just, you know, you often sound, you know, it's this whole story about common sense, excuse me, being the uncommon thing, isn't it?
It is. Common sense is definitely the uncommon thing when you get into some leadership roles. You know, yeah. I often think, what would you do at home? Do it at work. You know, you want to make your life easier. What would you do at home? If you're getting a coffee, you ask other people to get a coffee. You're the CEO and you're a moron, you say, get me a coffee. That's bullshit. Go and get your own coffee and offer somebody else a coffee. That's simple, isn't it? It's engaging. It's equity. It's, you know, acknowledging that person. It's camaraderie. It's simple.
Yeah, it's incredibly, you know, and often, of course, as you and I have talked about lots too, the best solution to a complex problem is something simple.
Yeah. And I look at sophistication and complexity being a whole lot of really cool, simple things completely jumbled up.
I think it was Steve Jobs who said, yeah, design is not just about how it looks, it's about how it works.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I'm very much about functional. You know, I used to train a lot of athletes before I got into the business world. I still train athletes now, but I remember training some line-out jumpers, and the sports scientist wanted to help them to jump higher and higher. And so they did this jump thing where you put your arm up on the wall as high as you can, they put a chalk mark there, and then you jump up, some chalk on your fingers, and then they jump up again and smack the wall, and they measure the distance between where the mark first started and when they jump. All right, so here they are doing this jump, and they're getting 2 centimeters above that, and maybe 1 centimeter above that, 3 centimeters above that. And so I said, so can I do it now? So I set up a video over here, over this side, looking at the wall, and I got them to put their fingers up with the chalk on, so they make their mark by putting their arms straight up. And then what I did, these are line-out jumpers. in a rugby team. So then what I did is I took a football and I threw it up in the air, because that's functional. That's what they do in the game. And I threw it in the air. They were jumping 6 to 8 up to 10 centimeters higher than a standing jump. Because it's functional. They're used to jumping for a ball, not jumping to smash the wall. So we could take the marks because of the video was right there, and we could see and measure it. And it was like, and the scientist was going, "Oh, that's pretty simple." Going, "No shit." That's the whole point of it. Keep it simple. Make it. Everything's got to be functional, right? It's like if I've got a cup and it's got no handle and I'm putting boiling water in it, that's not functional. I need one with a handle so I don't burn my freaking fingers. How hard is that? I remember this started for me at high school. We had a guy there, and he was a young guy, and he was a genius, really smart. A pluses for everything, and 100% in maths and science and everything else. But he would sit beside a window in the classroom, and he would just be moaning the whole time about the breeze and how cold it was. And one day I was so pissed off with him, I turned around and said, "Shut the freaking window." And he, "What do you mean?" I said, "Shut the window, and then you won't be cold with the breeze. Shut the freaking window." So he finally shut it, and I said, "How is that?" "Oh, that's good. That's good, thank you, mate." Could you imagine what his career was going to be like?
I think Tom Peters called this FBO, a flash of the bloody obvious, or a flash.
Yeah. Who said that?
Tom Peters, I think it was, a flash of the blinding obvious.
Yeah.
Now I know you have a few things. I think you have 5 things that you teach individuals. The foundations. Perhaps we can just end with those 5 foundations that enable the simplicity and enable the focus on the team.
Yeah. Okay. So the 5 foundations, or the 5 core words that I use that have come from the team, right? They've come from my clients over the last 21 years. This is what they've said about me and what they've written in testimonials. And these are the 5 things that they've identified with. So the first one is mental toughness. You have to be mentally strong to lead. And especially if you've got a team that's a tough lead, right? You've got to be mentally tough. You've got to be able to stand up for yourself. And you've got to be able to put that vision there and collaborate with those guys and make sure that you're making really clear decisions. And you've got to do that from a mindset that can cope with it. So that's the first one. The second one is confidence. You have to be confident in yourself. You have to be confident in your team. You have to be confident in your suppliers. You have to be confident with the customers that they're getting the right stuff, and that you know your stuff about your customers, not just somebody who buys something, but they have a reason for coming. So you've got to have a great deal of confidence in a range of areas. And so we go through that process of identifying the level of confidence on a scale of 1 to 10. And that's just using gut numbers, okay? So how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being brilliant, 1 being crap? On this right now, tell me what your gut says. 3. Bang. That's as scientific as I get. And then afterwards, I'll say to them, "So do you think that's a fair observation?" And they go, and every single time they go, "Yeah, absolutely." Okay, well, let's work on that. So that's confidence. Next one is focus. What are you focusing on? What is the core of a lemonade stand? And I've had different answers. The jugs, the marketing, the where the stand is. It's like, no, the core of the lemonade stand is the bloody lemons. If the lemons are shit, you got shit lemonade. So focus on getting high quality lemons. And then when you've got high quality lemons, focus on making sure they turn into great lemonade. Simple as that, right? So that's focus. Then we've got motivation. You can be motivated or unmotivated. Motivation is not worth squat unless you are getting actions attached to that motivation. You've got to find what the trigger is, the motivation trigger is, and then find the actions that are going to make that motivation work. And then the last one is really simple. It's attitude. And there's only 2 kinds of attitude. A winner's attitude or a loser's attitude. Which one do you want? And I have had to stand up in front of some CEOs and some people and saying, currently right now, and this guy that I told you before about, the BDM, he's trying to fix something that's not broken. Dude, you're creating a loser's attitude. And that's not going to do you any good for your future. So you need to get on board with a winning.
Why didn't you answer that?
Somebody barging in. No
There you
biggie.
go. I just had a slight distraction.
That's all right. Yeah, so that winning attitude is everything, really. And
Indeed.
if you've got it, and if you have a true winning attitude, means it's all about the team and how you lead them.
Indeed. So mental toughness, confidence, focus, motivation, and a winner's attitude.
A winner's attitude, yeah.
Well, Mark, there's been so much gold here, and yet it's so basic, but the profoundness is in the execution of the simple things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where life should always be.
So, folks, our guest today has been Mark Sutherland, the we'll call him famous and infamous gold medal coach from New Zealand, and he's also a great mate, and he does great work with so many businesses around the world. So, Mark, again, thanks so much.
Hey, you're very welcome.
This has been Ian Berry with another candid and convivial conversation about leadership. I look forward to seeing you next time.